Okay, let's get back on track. So on screen, Ruhif, you've had this presented before, but in a slightly different format. We've got these wind turbines, and when you calculate these wind turbines, they are falling around the sphericity of the Earth in exactly the way that the curve calculator says they should. So, I'm going to ask you, are these built on the curve of the Earth exactly as it would suggest they are based on the curve calculator?
Yes. Yes.
Say again?
Yes. I can't talk too loud because people are asleep.
Sorry. Okay, so according to you, because the curve calculator, which excludes perspective, says these are built on a curve, they are therefore built on a curve because the Earth is curved and these are curving around them in line with it, according to you and the curve maths.
His new name is Roofy. Everyone around him's asleep.
So, yeah, which excludes perspective.
Explain them turbines without raising your voice.
Ruif, do you know Bill Cosby?
I do. I do.
So yeah, so these are falling around the curve of the Earth based on the perspective omitting proof of nothing curve calculator. Right, Ruhif?
Right.
Okay. So we've excluded perspective, so we haven't taken into account the fact that the one in the distance is going to be smaller by virtue of distance. That's excluded from the calculator because we only take the actual sizes of each of these. So they're therefore all the same height and should be, in an orthographic calculation, all at the same height when we look down the line of them. That's how it works in an orthographic calculation. The main problem being that when we actually go from this, the z-axis, across to this, the x-axis, they are all, and I'll highlight them for the audience's benefit, we've got Ranty drawing a line across the top of the turbine for each that are in the row we have just looked down, which is the red line. By virtue of perspective, again, something I will highlight is ignored in the curve calculator, you can also work out the rest of the rows behind the row which is red in highlight. So they are absolutely, unequivocally not curving.
What's the red line meant to be?
The red line
is
this line that we have just looked down from the z-axis. So we're now looking at the z-axis from the x-axis. So we've gone 90 degrees to the viewing location of these which, according to you a moment ago, were built around the curve of the Earth. Yeah? Well, they're not. Correct. They are absolutely level with each other. But the maths matches when you exclude perspective.
I don't know how far apart these things are. Like,
it doesn't matter. When you calculate out the maths for these turbines and you are looking at them from the z-axis, they fall away with you. They fall away from you in line with perspective. However, the amount that they fall away from you matches the curve calculations, which ignore perspective and would suggest that they are curving around the curve of the Earth. However, when you look at them on the X from the Z-axis, you can see that they are all built perfectly flat. They are not curving.
How far apart are they, Ranty?
0.33 miles.
So you're looking at, what, 2 miles or 1.5 miles across?
2 miles.
That's like a pixel, right? So I'm meant to pick out a pixel on this or something?
You meant to pick out the curvature.
The curvature. So I'll go back, if I can, to the part where we see them down the line. And what you can see matches the curve maths. So if you calculate the distance for each of these and how much should be obscured and hidden and blah, 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 it all matches. But it ignores perspective in those calculations. So when you look down the line of things and you guys say, oh, look, how much obstruction on the bottom of these, and you factor in only the actual sizes, it ignores the fact that objects in the distance get smaller with distance. So you would assert, based on this only, that these are curving around the Earth. Obviously the Earth's curved, they're built on them, and it matches the maths, therefore built on a curve. The problem being that when you look at them from the x-axis, and look at them side on, 90 degrees adjacent to this line that you're looking down, seeing the effects of perspective, you see that they're not built on a curve, as the calculator suggests.
Get on with it, Nathan, I understand. But you're asking me to look at a left to right image, 1.5, 2 miles, and the drop from left to right will be like, what, 2 feet? Am I meant to pick?
No, we're looking at this from 11 to 13 miles, I think, or 10 to 12 miles.
Yeah, but once you go side on, you're looking then left to right.
Doesn't matter, you don't see curve in one axis only, you absolute retard. If they're curved, they're curved. If this is conforming to the curvature of the Earth, then they curve. And you will see it on side profile. It doesn't stop curving, does it? You idiot. It stays curved if it's curved. And if at 9 to 11 or 10 to 13 miles, it's curving because it's built on a curve, then you expect to see the same curve when you look from a different angle. The problem being that the calculator, which excludes perspective, doesn't seem to show perspective anywhere being accounted for, says they're curving away from you. And it matches perfectly with the maths. However, if they're curving...
How many...
If they're curving, and they're not.
Are there 5 or 6 red ones?
Why are you now asking me questions? I'm telling you this. I'm not asking you to ask me anything. I understand what I see, and I'm telling you, if you are to assert that when you look down the line of wind turbines, they are conforming to the curve of the Earth, and that is why they are dropping away from you, then ultimately they must be curving.
You're asking in this second picture.
I'm not asking. Open your bloody ears, man. I'm telling you, they don't curve. Yet the calculator, when you look down the line of them, says they do.
Yeah, and that's Z-axis curvature. You're now asking for X-axis curvature here.
No, I'm saying that when you look down the line of them, they are curving according to the maths.
Yes.
Yet when you look side on, they're not.
Listen to me. Listen. When you are looking down the line, you are looking a further distance, 11 to 13 miles. On this one, you are looking only 1 or 2 miles wide, looking for X-axis curvature.
No. They conform to a curve. I was very clear in my question. Do they conform to the curve? Yes, was your answer. If they're curving, they are curving. You will see the curve, this curve.
How far?
You are saying that this is a curve. It's curving around the Earth. Therefore, if we see them curving around the Earth, we will see them curving from the other axis. We don't.
You are looking further in this view than you are in the other one.
Yeah, that would be a virtue of perspective, something the calculator ignores completely.
Jesus, Nathan.
Sorry, did you just swear at me? Is that another sign that you're losing this argument, Ruhif?
Jesus, that's swearing?
I don't know, I'm
said
asking,
Jesus.
Are you now swearing at me? That was a question. I'm asking you a question.
Well, I'm asking you, is Jesus a swear word?
It's blasphemy. So you are. Okay, so Ruhif is losing this argument and has decided to resort to blasphemy. Right, so this is curving around the Earth according to Ruhif, because his calculator says so when it ignores perspective. His comeback being they're further into the distance. Listen up, dumbass. Your calculator doesn't account for things going into the distance. It's actual sizes only. Do you get it, retard?
I don't think you get it, Nathan.
I don't think you've just acknowledged what I've said, retard. Acknowledge it. Maybe I'll start talking to you like a child and getting to repeat back some of the stuff I say.
You can do what you
Your
like,
calculator, maybe it is time to get you to shut up and repeat stuff, hey, Ruhif? Repeat back after me.
Hold on, real quick.
Shut up,
real quick.
Issa.
Shut up. The point is this.
Shut up! Repeat after me, Ruhif. Alan's going to get kicked. Repeat after me.
No,
Oh, it's all
me,
the ballers
brother,
piling in to defend him, is it? Shut your mouths or I'll eject all of you. While I get Ruhif, the retard, to repeat after me. The calculator does not account for the fact that these get smaller into the distance. It ignores perspective. Repeat after me.
It ignores perspective, and it should ignore perspective.
No. I didn't ask you to say it should ignore perspective, because that is your comeback when I say that the perspective omitting, proof of nothing, begging the question curve calculator says that what we see on screen now is bending in conformity to a curved Earth. And as you can see, Ruhif, you complete dumbass, it's not curving, is it?
I'm just counting. 1 second. That's 3. You made me lose count.
I'm not asking you to count anything. I'm not making you do anything except concede that they are not curving as the calculator says.
Yeah. You don't understand that when you're...
I don't need to be told what I understand, dumbass. You don't understand the world.
I've lost count again. Shit, is it 4 or 5? Anyway, this left to right is like 1.5 miles. How am I supposed to distinguish like a foot of drop in between that?
Because we can see it on the previous picture. According to the maths, there's the drop that we
How
can
can you
see
see it
and
there?
measure. Do you see that drop?
I just see that you're underneath the
Do
hub.
you see the
You're taking a
drop?
photo.
Do you see it, yes or no?
No, you can't because I can't tell
Sorry,
the difference
we
from
tried
this
this
photo.
down earlier and you said that you could see it and it was conforming to the curve of the Earth, Ruhif. Are you a liar?
That's just because you're taking it from underneath the hub height.
Sorry, that would be a virtue of perspective again and an angular thing, not anything to do with the actual sizes of these turbines, which is plugged into the perspective omitting, proof of nothing, begging the question curve calculator, which we are destroying.
Broken record, Nathan.
Yeah, broken record ripping you a new asshole, Ruhif. Yeah? You ignore perspective and you've admitted it twice on this show. This, what you see now, is perspective. However, the curve calculator says it's curvature, and you agreed when I asked you. The problem being that when you look at it from the other axis, it's not curving. Telling me that the other axis shouldn't curve, but this one does, is utter nonsense, Ruhif. You can't have one curving and not the other. If it's curving, it's curving. The problem being that when you calculate it on this axis, you exclude perspective, which is precisely what we see. That's all we see because they're not curving. If you included perspective, you'd find your bulge gets in the way.
Nathan, could you share my screen for a moment?
I can.
Thank you. I've just got one question to ask Ruhif.
Yep.
Okay, so we're looking at these lampposts down a very straight road. And this lamppost to the side of this truck is about a mile away. How much is that going over the curvature of the Earth in comparison to this one?
A mile? Not very much.
But it looks like it's gone way over the curve.
How do you get that?
Because it looks smaller and we're not dumbasses and retards and we're not blind.
You can see it. It looks
How
like
do you
it's
get
gone
over
more.
the curve?
It's kind of like the buildings that we can see, Ruh. If we just see them, open your eyes.
Why is it any different to the turbines from the same angle?
It's not. Both are just perspective in action. Because the one is at a great distance, the curve calcs say it's curving. Because it's not including perspective.
The curve calcs would say that this lamppost here, which is a mile down the road, is 8 inches lower than this one here, right? But yet,
And you expect me to tell that from the photo?
To the eye, it looks like it's about a third of the height of the one nearest to me. Would you, this is so is that 8 inches gone over the curvature and you can tell that from an image?
No, you can't.
So can you apply it to the maths or do you need to factor it into the maths? Would you be lying or being
the fact that it's 8 inches long?
All right. So would it be disingenuous to say that this is 8 inches lower than this one here, when clearly you can see there's a massive discrepancy in height between the two, and you know that these lampposts are approximately 40 feet tall?
You guys are talking like you've just discovered perspective. Really?
I'm asking you a question. Why do you obfuscate the point? Can you not just agree
What's
that
the
things
question,
look different in the distance? They look smaller.
Their apparent
Of course
size.
they do. Yeah.
Right. But you would say that this has gone 8 inch over the curve.
What over that
Oh,
distance?
if that
Over a
road's
mile.
perfectly flat, then yeah, we're perfect level.
They do seem to be like installed plumb to each other vertically and not fanning out or,
We're
spraying
talking
away
about
from each
a
other.
road that may not necessarily be flat or perfectly conform to the shape of a spherical Earth. So
But you would say this would conform to the curvature of the Earth. Would be your assumption.
If it perfectly tracked the spherical Earth, then yes, of course.
But why does it look a lot smaller?
Well, you'd have to angle each lamppost slightly away from the other. There'd be a little bit of a tilt to them.
Yeah, I think what he's trying to say,
away from each other.
I think what he's trying to say is that the perspective change in the apparent size is the most prominent feature of the picture, but the 8 inches of curvature over the claimed curve is minuscule. But what we're calculating for on the curve calcs is the minuscule bit, and we're ignoring the bigger part.
How about this? Why not just say, if you go back to those wind turbines, the picture with the lines, if you could just ask Ruhif, where is the curvature on that picture?
Well, what I'm trying to
can't
say.
see that on the picture.
What I'm trying to say.
Hold on.
There you go.
Hold on.
There you
What do
go.
you mean you
can't
can't?
see it.
Right,
Hold
this
on, let's
truck
just
that's
compare.
perhaps-
Let's just do it for Ruhif's benefit. So this picture here, apparently that's not possible because we're too close to it. This picture here, though, because it's 11 miles away, even though we're seeing the exact same thing, they're both just falling away in line with perspective. But apparently this one, because the curve calcs say it's curvature, this one's curvature. Ignoring perspective, because the maths don't do that for a curved Earth, because they've got to ignore it, because that's what we're actually seeing, perspective. This is perspective, and this is perspective. But Ruhif says because this has got a label of 11 miles distance attached to it, this becomes curvature then. It becomes automatic curvature, even though it's not curving when you look at it from the x-axis. It's not curving at all. But 11 miles, yeah, let's ignore perspective and call it curve.